Panic, surprise, anger, lots of anger.
The instant violence, the level of the kinetic attacks, both coming at us and going away. I thought I was prepared for it, but I wasn't.
I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom, the initial push, 03 to 04.
My war was the Vietnam War. And the first thing I saw in combat was the immediate aftermath of B-52 strikes, where there were just lots of bodies, lots of things that had been human just minutes before.
Well, when people experience emotional trauma, whether it's a fire or an accident or abuse or being in a war and you see your buddy's head get blown off, your brain reacts to it in its emotional centers. For some people, not everybody, but for some people, those emotional centers, when they get flamed, they stay in a heightened state.
Everybody asked me, well, do you have flashbacks? And I'm not sure I have flashbacks, I have smellbacks. The first time I can remember being around an automobile accident here in the United States years later and smelling blood, it was just like I was back there.
Once I learned what it was, I realized I was having symptoms over there. I was having nightmares over there while I was there. I was on edge a lot, but I guess that'd be just from the stress of the situation. Tempers would flare. That was with most of us. I mean, I saw a lieutenant and a first sergeant get into a fist fight over an Iraqi being misconduct while he's fixing the air conditioner. I don't know. I mean, some of the symptoms I've had then, I still have now. They didn't develop till I was there, and they just never went away.
They're living in the past because they have brought that past into the present, right? So even when they're not actively thinking about that past moment, their body still lives there.
I think when I first became aware that I was having trouble was when my wife and children said, will you just stop trying to control everything we do? I was trying to control what was kind of uncontrollable, and that came back home with me. What might have been appropriate in combat was definitely not appropriate in social family situations. I didn't recognize it though, until, I mean, it was years later and my family broke up and it ended in divorce, and it was pretty emotional for me.
The emotional area that we see, we actually call it a diamond pattern. And at the top of the diamond is an area called the anterior cingulate gyrus. It's the part of your brain that allows you to go from thought to thought, move from idea, to shift your attention. And when we see that works too hard, people tend to get stuck on negative thoughts or negative behaviors. And clearly PTSD is you get stuck on the trauma. At the middle part of the diamond, the two side parts, is the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia, our experience is that it's heavily involved with anxiety. And clearly you're tense and you can't let go. And the bottom of the diamond is called the thalamus, part of the limbic system. And it tends to be correlated with depression. So you tend to be sad, anxious, and you can't let go.
My wife really, she'd had to deal with it the most. There were times she had to walk on eggshells. There was a while there it was real bad. It was my reason for not being in the Army. They put me out on it. It affects everybody around you.
So where does resolution lie for post-traumatic stress disorder? It means basically decoupling that body memory from the historical memory. And that is what we do with neurofeedback.
I was a neurofeedback therapist before I did imaging. In fact, it's part of the road that got me to imaging. Doing neurofeedback taught me to look at the brain and to go about changing it.
The first part of neurofeedback for PTSD involves teaching the brain to be more calm and more stable. Particularly the right brain, which is hyper-aroused with PTSD. The right brain controls our awareness and response to the world around us, and that is inflamed, that is over-aroused in PTSD. And so we need